This is why positioning is more important than wrestling moves or technique. All positioning is simply putting yourself into a position to where you're faster and stronger and you limit what your opponents can do to you. For example, if you're lifting weights and your feet are wide and you're looking at the ceiling, you can squat more weight. It has nothing to do with power. It has everything to do with your body position. So positioning makes you stronger. If your feet are close together and you're looking at the floor, you can't squat or lift very much weight. Poor positioning makes you weaker. Positioning also makes you faster. That's the reason a cross-country runner will learn running form. How about a sprinter? If I was starting kind of in a same position as maybe a shortstop. Now, a shortstop's mostly concerned with lateral movement, so their positioning is different than a sprinter. A sprinter will be down in the starting blocks, right? So if you're standing maybe in a shortstop position or stance and you're running the sprints in the National High School Sprinting Tournament, you're not going to be very fast. But if you're down in the starting blocks in a good position, you're going to be faster. So positioning makes you faster. Positioning makes you stronger and faster. Positioning also limits what your opponent can do to you. A boxer who has poor positioning will get punched in the face a lot. A wrestler who has poor positioning will get their legs attacked a lot. So both sports have a different positioning. That's what's cool about MMA. You have to kind of be careful about both, don't you? And you can get kicked. So that's a pretty tough sport. But as far as wrestling, if I'm in a basketball player's stance on the wrestling mat, my opponents can get my legs easy. But if I'm in what's called a world-class wrestling stance, I think there's videos on here about that also. It's the clipboard wrestling approach, or demo, I believe we call it. If I'm in a great wrestling stance, my opponents can't get my legs anymore, at least not very easy. So my body position limits what they can do to me. So that's what we're talking about when we look at positioning. And there's a lot of positioning areas, but for the most part, we've narrowed it down to 5 key power positions. And those of you who have been following our DVD series for years and our new online wrestling academy, what is today, Friday the 24th of January, might be up tonight. Hopefully by the beginning of next week you'll understand our power position sort of philosophy. So if I shoot on my opponent and I have a deep right knee, I have power because my knees are underneath me. But if I'm extended and my knees are extended, I'm not on my stomach, but my knees are kind of extended back. Now I'm top heavy. All my weight's on my front elbow and even my face a little bit. But by knee sliding, we have a term, deep right knee. Most of us are right-handed in wrestling. Deep left knee for you lefties, right? Deep right knee. So if I hit a single leg or a double leg or fireman's carry, ankle pick, low single leg, drive single leg, near arm far leg, all right? That's probably a double leg, blast double. That might be all the leg attacks. I think there's about 9 or 10 core leg attacks. But if you have a deep right knee, you're going to be in good position. See, sometimes we say, my son ended up, or my daughter ended up in bad position. They need better setups. And I watch the match or video and I go, no, that attack was right there. You really don't even need to set up in high school or kids wrestling, because if you just hold position and stay in a stance, your opponents will come out of their stance for you, right? Now the college wrestlers won't. That's the reason hand fighting takes priority for them, where even though we have a great hand fighting approach, push, pull, hit, pick, post, pass, and fake, we've systematized hand fighting to 7 core hand fighting techniques. And when you string 2 to 3 hand fighting techniques together, we have dubbed that as dynamic drilling and dynamic wrestling. Right, that's also going to be on our membership site, our online academy. So, the hand fighting is a key aspect of wrestling. But even I tell my athletes, even my great high school athletes, I'm like, the reason you couldn't get to your opponent's legs is because you got out of your stance before he did. If you just stay down there and wait 30 seconds or 10 seconds, this dude's going to come out of his stance and you can score. So positioning limits what your opponent can do to you. And if you will stay in your stance, your opponent will likely come out of theirs, and then you can get to their legs, right? If they don't, you have to use your hands and hand fight to the legs. But that's not even really necessary a lot if you just stay in a great stance, right? But so that's sort of the outline for positioning. It makes you faster. It makes you stronger. It limits what your opponent can do for you. Core power positions would be your wrestling stance. When I sprawl, feet wide, chest tight, knees off the mat, arch till it hurts, right? You can push and slide if you feel like your belt buckle's too high. We have a single leg power position when my opponent sprawls or doesn't. We have a high crotch power position. We have a power position on bottom and top. So your mat wrestling power positions, right? Because if I'm in a good position, some of us don't do very good on bottom because our positioning is poor, right? So if you get deep knees, you're going to have great positioning. So I would like to encourage you to not just look at wrestling as a bunch of moves, but say, let's look where our positions are. I have to be in a position of power, a position of explosiveness, so I can utilize my athleticism that God gave me. And from a wrestling standpoint, or MMA or boxing standpoint, a good position is also a protective mechanism. See, it's hard for me to get to your legs when you're in on mine. So we like to say this. If I get taken down 15 times today in practice, I should not go to the coach and say, why did I get I got taken down 15 times with a single leg. Coach, can you help me? Can you help me counter this single leg? I would say no. Let's first figure out why someone is on your legs 15 times in 10 minutes to begin with. This is a positioning issue, right? So then we're just basically stopping the bleeding, and that's such an important part of wrestling, is stopping the bleeding, right? So once we get that down over the course of a practice or two, and now we'd probably still coach them up a little bit on squaring their hips, feet wide, chest tight, knees off the mat, maybe go into a key lock and a Russian spin if they already had the angle on you. You can't always square up your hips, right? If they're below the knee and they're 80% of the way behind you, we have to go with the flow to our key lock position, right? Which some of you are familiar with those positions as well. But so we would probably shore up a few positions with them just to be a great helper, but we still would mostly be concerned with, let's keep people off your legs to begin with. A famous coach said to a wrestler years ago before the college national finals, he goes, this match is going to be simple for you. The more you're in on his legs, the less he's in on yours. That's all we're concerned about, right? Because both these guys were great leg attackers, and they just had to focus on pulling the trigger and not hesitating, as well as holding great position, looking for reshots and head blocking opportunities, right? But that's a pretty cool phrase. The more I'm in on your legs, the less you're in on mine. But the reverse is also true. The more you're in on my legs, I don't have a chance to shoot. If someone says, Nick, my kid has a terrible leg attack. And so I watch the match, I'm like, man, what's going on? Well, heck, your opponent was in on your legs. You were only on your feet 2 minutes and 20 seconds out of the 6-minute high school match, and the kid was in on your legs 1 minute and 48 seconds of the time, and he got 3 takedowns. You don't have time to shoot because your opponent's all over your legs. So holding your position and keeping someone off of your legs, that actually gives you a chance to get to his, right? So if I'm a quarterback and I'm always turning over the football, Like, we never got a chance to move the football down the field. We're like, well, no kidding. Our offense was on the bench the whole time because you kept throwing interceptions. It's called a turnover, right? So in a match, wrestling, we sort of have a turnover a little bit too. Dude, keep people off of your legs. And some people I know probably right now are saying, we don't wrestle defensive in my room, right? I didn't say wrestle defensive. When a Conor McGregor protects his neck from getting kicked with his shin bone and getting killed, he's not being defensive. I guarantee you nobody watching this would want to fight that dude. Because why? Because he's offensive. So we're not saying be defensive. We're saying quit letting people punch you in the face. Quit throwing interceptions. Quit letting people have the ball. Quit letting people strike you out. Quit letting people in on your legs. So that's what positioning is. And it's one of our 4 pillars, right? We have a 4-pillar approach. One is the mental side of wrestling. We have videos on here about that. One is positioning. You know about that now. One is hand fighting. Your hand fighting system. Push, pull, hit, pit, post, pass, and fake. Or the dynamic approach for the skilled wrestler. The 4th tier of wrestling is this. Technique. Now there's over 6,000 wrestling techniques. We've narrowed it down to the best 270, right? And we've also compartmentalized those to more basics or beginners. Then the level 1 or phase 1, then the level 2 or phase 2, then the level 3 or phase 3. So it's broken up into 4 parts, just like karate has a belt system. Gymnastics has the levels. We have at PurlerWrestling.com the level system for learning the sport of wrestling. And that's what we do at our camps too. So our 5-day camps are pretty much, basics, level 1. Wrestling 101, Wrestling 202. Our more advanced camps are Wrestling 202, Wrestling 303. Our 28-day camp is the level. It's Wrestling 202, Wrestling 303, Wrestling 404. And I think if you start taking that approach a little bit as an athlete and a coach, it's going to help. But really focus on the 4 areas of wrestling. And from a technique standpoint, we want to focus on the best techniques from the most common positions. All right, so basically this. Someone's going to grab my neck with a collar tie. That's what we do in wrestling. Even college guys collar tie some, but in high school and kids wrestling, it's rampant. Someone's going to collar tie your opponent's, or rather your kid's neck 12, 14 times a match. Let's just say 10 times a match. Someone's going to grab you with a collar tie. They grab your neck. Whether they're forehead to forehead, temple to temple, or ear to ear. You have 50 matches this year. 500 times this year, plus practice. If you only wrestle 6 months a year, we can say 4,500 times this year, someone's going to grab your neck. That's the reason we have 5 of the best tactics from there on planet Earth. That's all we do. There might be 14 or 15 things you could do, but if it doesn't work on Iowa State, we're not going to waste our time. If it won't win you a college national title, we're not going to drill it. Even our 6-year-olds. We're not doing anything that's not going to work at a college level, because why not learn wrestling right the first time, right? So we elbow pass. If we're collar tie ear to ear, we collar jerk or underhook. From there we go to our throw by. If we're forehead to forehead, or maybe even temple to temple in a collar tie, then we like to pass by or slide by. 5 things: elbow pass, collar jerk, underhook, throw by, slide by, or pass by. Those are the 5 techniques of wrestling that are world class and phenomenal from an ear to ear collar tie. Why do we choose that? Because that's a common position. If you want to learn a counter to a counter to a counter to a counter to a Russian 2-on-1, you're wasting your time. Don't do that right now. Wait till you're ranked in the nation. Another common position. You're going to get 4 or 5 front headlocks a match. Your opponent shoots. You sprawl. You catch the chin and elbow. Chin, elbow, ear. Right hand has the chin. Left hand has the elbow. Right ear on the armpit. Shoulder in the back of the neck or the tag of the shirt. That's the talking points and the technique phrases for positioning. So we're in our power position for front headlock now. Now that I'm in a good position, now the move or whatever will work. We have 9 things we do from a front headlock, right? That's a lot, but there's way more than that. But we don't do everything with our beginners. We just say, what's the best 2? Our more advanced kids, all right? We have 4 ways to do it. And then in our super advanced camps or our academy, We have all 9 ways to score from there. Some of them are finishes to one, like a knee tap. We have 2 finishes, so we count that as 2 different techniques, but they're very similar. But when you really look at building your wrestling career around the 4 pillars, and you really have a heavy emphasis on the philosophies of positioning and what it can do for you offensively and defensively, and you start saying, like turning over the basketball, letting people punch you in the face. These other sports also are track runner in the sprinting position versus the power position for a shortstop. Those are different positions. A power position for a catcher, that's a different position than the shortstop. Can you imagine if the shortstop was in the catcher's power position? That would be silly, right? So we have 5 key power positions. We count top and bottom as 1, so technically there were 6 there. But so start looking at wrestling as a more sort of canvas and an organized approach, and say, what are the best 270 techniques in wrestling? And we're counting like stance, we're counting an elbow pass, we're counting a collar tie underhook for a throw by, we're counting some of our positioning tactics as moves, because technically they are from a technique standpoint. So don't be overwhelmed with a 270 approach. But that's kind of where we're at. But there's a video on positioning, and I went into a tangent on some other things there, trying to educate you on the full scheme of wrestling. Good luck. You can check us out at purlerwrestling.com.